The morning fog hung thick over the Coronado Beach as Maya Rodriguez stepped off the bus, her duffel bag slung over her shoulder, and determination etched across her face. At 24 years old, she stood 5 feet 6 inches tall with a lean but muscular build that spoke of years spent in preparation for this moment. Her dark hair was pulled back in a regulation bun, and her brown eyes scanned the intimidating facility that would either make or break her dreams over the next 6 months. Maya had grown up in a small town in Texas, where her father worked double shifts at a factory and her mother cleaned houses to make ends meet. From an early age, she had learned that nothing came easy, and everything worth having required sacrifice. While other kids played video games or hung out at the mall, Maya was either studying to maintain her straight-A average or training at the local gym where the owner, a former Marine named Carlos, had taken her under his wing. Carlos had been the first person to tell Maya she had what it took to be special forces. He had watched her push through workouts that left grown men gasping for air, seen her refuse to quit even when her muscles screamed in protest. When she told him about her dream to become a Navy SEAL, he didn't laugh like others had. Instead, he nodded seriously and said, "Then, we better get you ready." The journey to this moment had been anything but smooth. Maya had enlisted in the Navy at 18, serving 4 years as a hospital corpsman before finally earning the right to attempt SEAL training. During those 4 years, she had deployed twice to Afghanistan, where she had proven herself under fire, saving lives while bullets flew overhead. She had earned the respect of her fellow sailors and the recommendation of her commanding officers, but she knew that none of that would matter once she walked through those gates. The Navy SEAL Training Program, officially known as Basic Underwater Demolition/SEAL Training or BUD/S, had a reputation that preceded it. Only about 25% of candidates made it through the grueling 6-month program, and Maya would be among the first women ever to attempt it since the military had opened all combat roles to women just a few years earlier. The weight of that responsibility sat heavy on her shoulders, but it also fueled her determination. As Maya approached the check-in building, she could already hear the voices of her fellow candidates echoing across the compound. Most were men in their early 20s, many of them coming from elite military backgrounds or Division I athletics. She could see them sizing each other up, forming quick judgments about who would make it and who would ring the brass bell that signaled the candidate's withdrawal from the program. The first person to notice Maya was Staff Sergeant Mike Thompson, a hulking man from Alabama who had played football at Auburn before joining the Army Rangers. He looked her up and down with barely concealed skepticism, then turned to his buddy and said loudly enough for her to hear, "Well, I give her about 2 weeks. Maybe less if we're lucky." Maya had encountered this attitude before. Throughout her Navy career, she had faced men who believed that women didn't belong in combat roles, that they were too weak physically and too emotional mentally to handle the pressures of warfare. She had learned early on that the best response was not words, but actions. She would let her performance speak for itself. The check-in process was deliberately overwhelming. Candidates were herded from station to station, filling out paperwork, receiving gear, and getting briefed on the program ahead. At each stop, instructors watched them carefully, looking for signs of weakness or hesitation. Maya moved through each station with quiet confidence, speaking only when spoken to and maintaining the bearing she had learned during her years in the Navy. Her first real test came during the initial physical fitness assessment. All candidates had to meet minimum standards just to begin the program, but Maya knew that meeting the minimum would not be enough. The test consisted of a 500-yard swim, push-ups, sit-ups, pull-ups, and a 1.5-mile run, all performed in sequence with minimal rest between events. As the candidates lined up for the swim, Maya could feel eyes on her. Some of her fellow trainees watched with curiosity, others with obvious doubt. The instructors, stone-faced men with years of special operations experience, showed no emotion as they prepared to time each candidate. The whistle blew, and Maya dove into the cold Pacific waters alongside 47 other hopefuls. The swim was conducted in the surf zone, where waves and currents added an extra challenge to an already difficult test. Maya had grown up swimming in lakes and rivers, but ocean swimming was different. The salt water stung her eyes, and the waves seemed determined to push her off course. Halfway through the swim, she found herself in the middle of the pack, neither leading nor falling behind. She could hear Thompson somewhere behind her, his stroke powerful but inefficient as he fought against the water rather than working with it. Maya focused on her technique, remembering the countless hours she had spent in pools and open water, preparing for this moment. As she approached the finish, Maya could see that she was among the first 10 candidates to complete the swim. Her time of 11 minutes and 30 seconds was well above the minimum requirement and better than most of her male counterparts. As she climbed out of the water, she noticed one of the instructors make a note on his clipboard, but his expression remained unreadable. The push-up test came next. Candidates had to perform as many perfect push-ups as possible in 2 minutes. Maya had always excelled at this exercise, her lean frame giving her an advantage over larger candidates who had to move more weight. She settled into a steady rhythm, her form textbook perfect as she knocked out repetition after repetition. Around her, she could hear the grunts and heavy breathing of other candidates as they pushed themselves to their limits. Some were already starting to slow down, their form deteriorating as fatigue set in. Maya maintained her pace, focusing on quality over quantity while still pushing for a high number. When the 2 minutes were up, Maya had completed 87 push-ups, more than any other candidate in her group. The minimum requirement was 50, but most of the men around her had managed between 60 and 70. Again, she noticed the instructors taking notes, their faces giving nothing away. The sit-up test followed a similar pattern. Maya's core strength, developed through years of functional fitness training, served her well as she powered through 96 repetitions in 2 minutes. The pull-up test was perhaps her biggest concern, as upper body strength was traditionally considered a male advantage, but she managed 15 clean repetitions, again exceeding the minimum requirement. The final test was the 1.5-mile run, and this was where Maya knew she could really shine. She had always been a natural runner, and her cardiovascular fitness was exceptional. As the group set off along the beach, Maya settled into a pace that felt comfortable but aggressive. The sand made the run more challenging than it would have been on a track or road. Each step required extra effort as feet sank into the soft surface, and the uneven terrain tested balance and coordination. Maya had trained for this, spending countless hours running on beaches and sand dunes near her home base. As the run progressed, Maya found herself moving up through the pack. She passed candidate after candidate, her breathing steady and controlled while others began to labor. With half a mile to go, she was in third place, closing on the 2 leaders who had gone out too fast and were now paying the price. In the final quarter mile, Maya made her move. She lengthened her stride and increased her pace, drawing on reserves of energy that came from months of preparation. She passed the second-place runner with 200 yards to go, then set her sights on the leader, a cocky former college track athlete who had been talking about his running credentials since check-in. The finish line came into view, and Maya could hear footsteps behind her as other candidates mounted final kicks. But she had timed her move perfectly. She crossed the line in first place with a time of 9 minutes and 45 seconds, nearly a full minute faster than the minimum requirement and 15 seconds ahead of her nearest competitor. As she cooled down, Maya could hear the murmur of voices among the other candidates. Some sounded impressed, others skeptical. Thompson, who had finished in the bottom half of the group in the run, made a point of walking past her and saying, "Don't get too excited, sweetheart. The real test starts tomorrow." Maya didn't respond. She had learned long ago that some people would never be convinced by words, only by sustained excellence over time. Tomorrow would indeed be the real test, when the instructors began the systematic process of pushing candidates beyond their perceived limits to see who would break and who would adapt and overcome. That evening, as Maya organized her gear in the barracks she would call home for the next 6 months, she reflected on the day. The physical fitness test had gone better than she had hoped, but she knew it was just the beginning. The instructors had been watching not just her performance, but her attitude, her interactions with other candidates, and her response to stress. She thought about the phone call she had made to her parents the night before leaving for Coronado. Her father had been proud but worried, her mother tearful but supportive. They had sacrificed so much to give her opportunities they never had, working extra jobs to pay for her college education even though she had earned a partial scholarship. The Navy had paid for the rest, and now she had a chance to achieve something that had never been done before. Maya also thought about Carlos, her mentor back home, who had pushed her harder than she had ever been pushed before. He had created training scenarios that simulated the stress and exhaustion she would face in SEAL training, making her carry heavy objects while solving mathematical problems or forcing her to complete complex tasks after hours of physical exertion. "Your body will want to quit," he had told her, "but Your mind has to be stronger than your body. The barracks were quieter now, most candidates trying to get what sleep they could before the real training began. Maya could hear whispered conversations from other bunks, some candidates already forming alliances while others seemed to be having second thoughts about their decision to attempt the program. She knew that tomorrow would bring new challenges, and that the instructors would be looking for any excuse to wring her out of the program. They would test not just her physical capabilities, but her mental toughness, her ability to work as part of a team, and her capacity to maintain performance under extreme stress. Maya also understood that she was carrying more than just her own dreams into this training. She was representing every woman who had ever been told she wasn't strong enough, fast enough, or tough enough to compete with men in the most elite military units. The pressure was immense, but so was her motivation. As she finally drifted off to sleep, Maya's last conscious thought was of the bell that sat in the center of the training compound. It was an ominous presence that had called to hundreds of candidates over the years, offering an end to pain and exhaustion in exchange for the abandonment of dreams. She had walked past it several times during the day, noting its worn brass surface polished smooth by the hands of those who had decided they had endured enough. Maya made a silent promise to herself that night. She would not ring that bell. No matter what the instructors threw at her, no matter how much pain she had to endure, no matter how many of her fellow candidates quit or how many people doubted her ability to succeed, she would not quit. She would either graduate from this program or be carried out on a stretcher, but she would not voluntarily withdraw. The next morning would bring the beginning of the most challenging experience of her life, but Maya Rodriguez was as ready as she could be. She had trained her body to its peak condition, prepared her mind for the psychological warfare she knew was coming, and steeled her resolve for the battles ahead. In a few hours, she would begin to show her skeptical instructors and doubtful fellow candidates exactly what they were dealing with. The stage was set for a confrontation between tradition and progress, between those who believed in the old ways and someone determined to prove that excellence knew no gender boundaries. Maya had no way of knowing that her journey through SEAL training would become legendary, or that her performance would force everyone around her to reconsider their assumptions about what women could accomplish in the most demanding military training programs. All she knew was that tomorrow, the real test would begin, and she intended to be ready for whatever came next. The alarm clock screamed at 0430 hours, but Maya was already awake, lying in her bunk and listening to the sounds of the Pacific Ocean in the distance. Around her, other candidates stirred reluctantly, some groaning as they realized that their new reality was about to begin in earnest. The physical fitness test had been just a warm-up. Today marked the start of first phase, the initial 7 weeks of training that would test every aspect of their physical and mental preparation. Maya had learned from her research that first phase was designed to weed out the candidates who lacked the basic physical conditioning and mental toughness required for the program. The instructors would gradually increase the intensity of workouts, while simultaneously applying psychological pressure to break down those who weren't truly committed to becoming SEALs. The candidates stumbled out of their bunks and began the process of getting ready for their first real day of training. Maya moved efficiently, having laid out her gear the night before according to the specific requirements outlined in their orientation materials. Her boots were polished, her uniform was pressed, and her equipment was arranged exactly as specified. At 0500 hours sharp, the barracks door flew open with a crash that echoed off the walls like a gunshot. 3 instructors strode in, their faces masks of controlled aggression as they surveyed the candidates who were still struggling to get dressed and organized. The lead instructor was Chief Petty Officer Rodriguez, no relation to Maya, a compact man with arms like steel cables and eyes that seemed to see everything at once. "Good morning, ladies," Chief Rodriguez bellowed, his voice carrying easily through the barracks. "I hope you enjoyed your beauty sleep, because it's the last peaceful night you'll have for the next 6 months. You have exactly 4 minutes to get your sorry selves outside in formation, and if even one of you is late, you'll all be doing extra push-ups until I get tired of watching you suffer." The barracks erupted into controlled chaos as candidates rushed to finish getting dressed and grab their gear. Maya was among the first ready, but she waited to help Thompson, who was struggling with a bootlace that had broken. Her action didn't go unnoticed by the instructors, who were carefully observing how candidates behaved under their first taste of real pressure. The formation outside was imperfect, with some candidates still adjusting their gear and others breathing heavily from their rush to be on time. Chief Rodriguez walked slowly down the line, stopping in front of candidates who caught his attention for various reasons. When he reached Maya, he paused and looked her up and down with the same expression he might use to examine a piece of defective equipment. "Rodriguez," he said, reading her name tape. "Any relation to me?" "No, Chief," Maya replied in a clear, steady voice, maintaining the position of attention. "Good thing," Chief Rodriguez said with a slight smirk. "Because if you were my daughter, I'd have raised you better than to think you belong here. We'll see how long you last before you realize this isn't a place for little girls who watch too many action movies." Maya didn't react visibly to the comment, though she felt a flash of anger rise in her chest. She had expected this kind of treatment and had prepared herself mentally to endure whatever verbal abuse the instructors deemed necessary. She understood that they were testing her emotional control as much as her physical capabilities. The first workout of first phase was deliberately intimidating. The candidates were led to a section of the beach where a series of obstacles had been set up in the sand. These weren't the complex structures they would encounter later in training, but rather simple implements of torture disguised as exercise equipment: heavy logs, sandbags, and rope climbing stations. Chief Rodriguez explained the workout in terms that left no doubt about its purpose. "This morning, you're going to discover what you're really made of. We're going to start with a little warm-up run, then move into some exercises designed to introduce you to the concept of comfort zone destruction. Some of you will find out today that you're not as tough as you thought you were." The warm-up run turned out to be 4 miles through soft sand, with the pace set by the instructors who seemed to glide effortlessly across the beach while the candidates struggled to maintain formation. Maya found herself near the front of the group, her months of sand-running preparation paying dividends as she maintained the prescribed pace without the visible strain that was already affecting some of her classmates. Behind her, she could hear the labored breathing of candidates who were discovering that their previous fitness routines hadn't adequately prepared them for this level of exertion. Thompson was among those struggling, his powerful build working against him as he sank deeper into the sand with each step. By the 2-mile mark, several candidates were already falling off the pace, and the instructors were beginning to take note of who was keeping up and who was falling behind. When they returned to the exercise area, Chief Rodriguez wasted no time in beginning the next phase of their introduction to SEAL training. The candidates were divided into boat crews of 6 members each, and Maya found herself assigned to a crew that included Thompson, 2 former college athletes, a prior service Marine, and a quiet candidate named David Chun who had grown up in San Francisco's Chinatown. Their first task was to carry a 200-pound inflatable boat over their heads for a distance of 1 mile along the beach. The boat, known as an IBS, inflatable boat, small, would become a constant companion throughout their training, and the instructors made it clear that the crew would succeed or fail as a unit. "Listen up, boat crews," announced Instructor Williams, a tall man with a southern drawl and a reputation for creative punishment exercises. "These boats don't care about your feelings, your background, or your excuses. They're heavy, they're awkward, and they're going to test everything you think you know about teamwork. If one member of your crew gives up, the whole crew fails. If one person can't keep up, everyone suffers." The initial lift of the boat revealed immediate challenges. At 200 pounds distributed among 6 people, the weight should have been manageable for fit individuals, but the awkward shape and the need for perfect coordination made it exponentially more difficult. Maya positioned herself at one of the front corners, where she could help guide the crew's movement while supporting her share of the weight. Thompson, despite his earlier struggles with the run, proved to be an asset during the boat carry. His raw strength helped stabilize the boat when coordination broke down, and he began to show signs of the leadership qualities that had earned him his Ranger tab. The former Marine, a stocky man named Rodriguez, the third Rodriguez in their group, provided steady reliability, while the college athletes brought the conditioning needed for sustained effort. The weak link quickly revealed itself to be David Chun, whose slight build made it difficult for him to maintain his grip on the boat during the longer carries. Maya noticed his struggle early and began quietly coaching him on hand position and breathing techniques, while Thompson used his position to take on a slightly larger share of the weight when Chun needed relief. After 30 minutes of boat carries, the crew was exhausted but intact. More importantly, they had begun to function as a unit rather than 6 individuals trying to accomplish the same task. Maya's role as a stabilizing influence had not gone unnoticed by the instructors, who were carefully documenting how each candidate responded to the stress of team-dependent exercises. The morning workout continued with a series of exercises designed to push candidates beyond their comfort zones. Log PT involved teams of candidates lifting, carrying, and performing exercises with telephone pole-sized pieces of timber that weighed several hundred pounds each. The logs were wet, slippery, and designed to punish any crew that couldn't maintain perfect coordination. Maya's crew was assigned a log that seemed to have a malicious personality of its own. Every time they thought they had found an effective grip, the log would shift unexpectedly, threatening to slip from their collective grasp and crush someone's foot or hand. The exercise required not just strength, but constant communication and adjustment as the crew moved through a series of prescribed movements. During overhead presses, Maya found herself supporting more weight than she had ever handled before. Her shoulders burned with the effort, but she maintained her position and her pace, refusing to be the weak link that let her crew down. Around her, she could hear the grunts and gasps of her crewmates as they pushed through their own limits. The instructors circulated among the crews like sharks sensing blood in the water. They offered no encouragement, only criticism and demands for better performance. Chun, you're not pulling your weight. Thompson, I've seen stronger efforts from my grandmother. Rodriguez, if you can't handle this log, how are you going to handle a real mission? Maya largely escaped individual criticism during the log PT, but she could feel the instructors watching her closely. She suspected they were waiting for her to falter, to prove that a woman couldn't handle the physical demands of the training. Her response was to maintain perfect form and maximum effort, giving them no ammunition to use against her. The morning session concluded with surf conditioning, an exercise that would become a dreaded regular feature of their training. The candidates were ordered into the cold Pacific Ocean, where they had to link arms and face the incoming waves as a group. The water temperature was barely above 50 degrees, and the waves were large enough to knock grown men off their feet. The purpose of surf conditioning went far beyond physical fitness. It was designed to teach candidates to remain calm and functional in an environment where they had no control, where they were at the mercy of forces much larger than themselves. The instructors watched carefully to see who panicked when hit by large waves and who maintained composure even when tumbled underwater by the surf. Maya had never experienced anything quite like surf conditioning. The cold water was a shock to her system that seemed to penetrate to her bones within minutes. The waves were relentless, hitting the line of candidates with enough force to separate linked arms and send people tumbling in all directions. Salt water filled her nose and mouth, and the sandy bottom shifted unpredictably beneath her feet. What made the exercise even more challenging was the requirement to maintain military bearing throughout the ordeal. Candidates were expected to respond to instructor commands even while being pummeled by waves, and any sign of panic or loss of control was noted for future reference. Maya forced herself to remain calm even when a particularly large wave broke directly over her head, driving her underwater for several seconds before she could fight her way back to the surface. After 20 minutes in the surf, the candidates were ordered back onto the beach, where they were immediately required to perform exercises in their soaked uniforms. The combination of cold, exhaustion, and waterlogged clothing made even simple movements feel like monumental efforts. Maya's teeth chattered uncontrollably as she attempted to perform push-ups in the sand, but she maintained her pace and her form. The instructors used this moment to deliver one of their signature psychological attacks. "Look around you," Chief Rodriguez announced as the candidates struggled through their post-surf workout. "Half of you are already thinking about quitting, and we haven't even started the hard stuff yet. This is what easy looks like in BUD/S. It only gets worse from here." Some candidates glanced toward the bell that sat ominously near the training area, its brass surface gleaming in the morning sun. Maya could see the doubt creeping into their eyes, the first crack in the armor of determination that had brought them this far. She made a conscious effort to focus on her breathing and her form, blocking out the instructor's words and the doubts they were designed to create. The morning session finally ended with a meal that was consumed in silence under the watchful eyes of the instructors. The food was basic but nutritious, designed to provide the fuel needed for sustained effort without any consideration for taste or enjoyment. Maya ate methodically, consuming everything on her plate while her mind processed the morning's events. She had performed well during the initial workouts, but she knew that the instructors were just getting started. They had identified the candidates who might be weak links, and They had begun this psychological campaign designed to break down those who weren't completely committed to finishing the program. Thompson approached her during the brief break after lunch, his earlier antagonism replaced by a grudging respect. "You did good out there this morning," he admitted quietly. "I wasn't sure what to expect, but you held your own." Maya nodded her acknowledgement, but didn't let her guard down. She understood that alliances in BUD/S could be temporary, and that the increasing pressure of training could turn friends into rivals overnight. She was grateful for Thompson's recognition, but she wasn't going to rely on anyone else's approval for motivation. The afternoon brought a new set of challenges, beginning with the obstacle course that would become a daily feature of their training. The course was a maze of walls, ropes, and barriers designed to test every aspect of a candidate's physical capabilities. Some obstacles favored strength, others demanded agility, and a few required techniques that could only be mastered through practice and determination. Maya approached each obstacle methodically, drawing on her years of functional fitness training and her natural athleticism. The rope climb, traditionally considered a test of upper body strength, proved to be one of her stronger events. Her technique was efficient and smooth, and she completed the ascent faster than most of her male counterparts. The wall climbs were more challenging, requiring not just strength but technique and confidence. Maya had practiced similar obstacles during her preparation, but the BUD/S versions were higher and more intimidating than anything she had encountered before. She attacked each wall aggressively, using her legs as much as her arms and maintaining momentum throughout the climb. By the end of the obstacle course, Maya was exhausted but satisfied with her performance. She had completed every obstacle without assistance and had posted one of the better overall times in her class. More importantly, she had demonstrated to herself and to the watching instructors that she belonged on the course with her male counterparts. The day concluded with another dose of surf conditioning, this time in the late afternoon when the water was even colder and the candidates were already exhausted from hours of training. Maya steeled herself for another trip into the icy Pacific, knowing that this session would be even more challenging than the morning's introduction to the exercise. As she linked arms with her fellow candidates and waded into the surf, Maya reflected on the day's events. She had survived her first real day of BUD/S training, and she had performed at a level that even her harshest critics would have to acknowledge. But she also understood that this was just the beginning, and that the instructors would continue to escalate the pressure until only the most determined candidates remained. The waves hit with renewed fury, and Maya found herself once again fighting to maintain her position and her composure in the face of forces beyond her control. Around her, she could hear the gasps and curses of other candidates as they struggled with the cold and the surf. She forced herself to remain calm and focused, knowing that this exercise was as much about mental toughness as physical endurance. As the sun began to set over the Pacific, casting long shadows across the beach where the candidates continued their training, Maya understood that she had crossed an important threshold. She had proven to herself and to others that she could compete at this level, but she also knew that much greater challenges lay ahead. Tomorrow would bring new tests, new opportunities to prove herself, and new chances for the instructors to find her breaking point. But tonight, as she prepared for another few hours of rest before the cycle began again, Maya Rodriguez allowed herself a moment of quiet satisfaction. She was still here, she was performing at a high level, and she was one step closer to achieving a goal that many people had told her was impossible. The journey was far from over, but she had made it through day one of the most challenging military training program in the world, and that was something that no one could take away from her. 3 weeks in a first phase, the attrition rate was already devastating. What had started as a class of 48 candidates had been reduced to 31, with more showing signs of wavering commitment each day. The constant physical demands, sleep deprivation, and psychological pressure were taking their toll, and Maya could see the strain etched on every face around her. The instructors had refined their approach, identifying the candidates they considered most likely to quit, and focusing their attention accordingly. Maya had noticed that she was receiving more individual attention from Chief Rodriguez and his team, though not necessarily the kind she wanted. They seemed determined to find her breaking point, testing her in ways that went beyond the standard curriculum. On this particular morning, the class was introduced to a new form of torture disguised as training, buddy races. Each candidate was paired with another for a series of competitive events that would test not only individual performance, but also the ability to work with a partner under extreme stress. Maya found herself paired with Jennifer Walsh, the only other woman remaining in their class. Jennifer was a former college swimmer from Connecticut who had joined the Navy to prove something to herself and her family. She was tall and lean, with the kind of natural water skills that made her formidable during swimming events, but less effective during the strength-based exercises. The pairing was clearly intentional on the part of the instructors, who seemed eager to see how the two women would perform when their success depended on each other. Their first event was a 2-mile run through soft sand, while carrying a 40-pound sandbag between them. The bag had to be shared equally, with partners switching off every quarter mile. Maya and Jennifer quickly developed a rhythm, with Maya's superior running ability balancing Jennifer's struggle with the weight-bearing portions of the event. As they moved through the course, Maya could hear the instructors making comments designed to break their concentration and confidence. "Look at that, the girls' club is working together," called out Instructor Williams. "Too bad they're still going to finish last." The comments were intended to create doubt and division, but Maya and Jennifer had developed an understanding during their weeks of training together. They finished the run in 8th place out of 15 pairs, a respectable showing that put them ahead of several all-male teams. More importantly, they had worked together effectively and had maintained a strong pace throughout the event. Maya felt a surge of pride, not just in her own performance, but in what she and Jennifer had accomplished as a team. The buddy races continued with a series of exercises that tested different aspects of physical and mental toughness. The obstacle course event required partners to help each other over walls and through barriers, with the understanding that both team members had to finish for the pair to be successful. Maya and Jennifer's different strengths complemented each other perfectly, with Jennifer's height helping on the tall walls while Maya's upper body strength was crucial during the rope climbs. During the log carry event, their teamwork was put to its ultimate test. Each pair had to carry a 150-pound log for 1 mile, with no restrictions on how they accomplished the task. Some teams tried to share the weight equally. Others had the stronger partner carry most of the load. But Maya and Jennifer developed a strategy that played to their individual strengths while maximizing their efficiency. They positioned the log so that Maya carried the heavier end while Jennifer took the lighter portion. But they switched positions every quarter mile to prevent either partner from becoming completely exhausted. Their strategy allowed them to maintain a steady pace, while other teams were forced to take frequent breaks when one partner became overwhelmed. The instructors watched their performance with interest, clearly surprised by the effectiveness of their approach. Maya could see them making notes and exchanging glances, and she suspected that their success was not fitting into the narrative that some of the staff had constructed about women in SEAL training. The final event of the buddy races was surf passage, an exercise that combined swimming, boat handling, and surf navigation in one brutal test of watermanship and teamwork. Each pair was given a small inflatable raft and required to navigate through the surf zone to retrieve an object from a buoy anchored 200 yards offshore, then return through the waves to the beach. Maya and Jennifer approached the surf passage with careful planning. Jennifer's swimming background made her the natural choice to lead their water navigation, while Maya's experience with small boat operations during her Navy service would be crucial during the beach landing phase. They studied the wave patterns and current conditions before entering the water, looking for the best route through the surf zone. The initial launch was chaotic, with waves immediately testing their boat handling skills and teamwork. Maya provided power while Jennifer steered, using her knowledge of water conditions to find the path of least resistance through the breaking waves. Several other teams were immediately swamped or capsized, forcing them to restart their attempts from the beach. Once they cleared the surf zone, Maya and Jennifer found themselves in relatively calm water, but the buoy seemed farther away than it had appeared from shore. Jennifer's swimming technique proved invaluable as she paddled efficiently while Maya provided stability and navigation assistance. They reached the buoy in good position, among the first 3 teams to arrive. The return trip was more challenging, as they had to navigate back through the surf zone while managing a tired crew and an increasingly difficult sea state. Maya took the lead for the beach approach, using her understanding of small boat operations to position their craft for a successful landing. They rode a wave into shore, jumping out at just the right moment to guide their boat safely onto the sand. Their overall performance in the buddy races was exceptional, finishing second out of 15 teams, and proving that their partnership was based on complementary skills rather than shared weaknesses. Maya felt a sense of validation that went beyond personal achievement. She and Jennifer had demonstrated that women could not only survive in this environment, but could excel when given the opportunity to compete on equal terms. The success of the buddy races led to a subtle shift in how some of the other candidates viewed Maya and Jennifer. Thompson, who had initially been skeptical of women in the program, began to acknowledge their capabilities more openly. During evening gear preparation, he made a point of asking Maya for advice on swimming techniques, recognizing that her performance in the water was superior to his own. "I got to admit," Thompson said as they worked on their equipment, "you two proved something out there today. I wasn't sure what to expect when they paired you up, but you handled those races better than most of the guys." Maya appreciated the recognition, but she was careful not to let her guard down. She understood that respect earned through performance could be just as quickly lost if she failed to maintain her standards. The instructors had made it clear that every day brought new opportunities to prove or disprove one's worthiness to continue in the program. The psychological pressure continued to intensify as first phase progressed toward its climax, Hell Week. This 5-and-a half-day period of constant training with minimal sleep was designed to push candidates beyond their breaking point and identify those who possessed the mental toughness required for special operations. Maya had been preparing for Hell Week since she first decided to attempt SEAL training, but she knew that no amount of preparation could fully ready someone for the reality of the experience. In the weeks leading up to Hell Week, the instructors increased the frequency and intensity of surprise inspections, equipment checks, and remedial training sessions. They were looking for any excuse to eliminate candidates before the main event, understanding that each person who quit before Hell Week was one less potential failure they would have to deal with during the most intensive period of training. Maya found herself under particular scrutiny during this period. Her room was inspected more frequently than others. Her equipment was examined with microscopic attention to detail, and her responses to instructor questions were analyzed for any sign of weakness or uncertainty. She understood that the instructors were trying to create doubt and stress that would manifest itself during Hell Week, when physical exhaustion would make mental resilience even more important. One evening, as Maya was preparing her gear for the next day's training, Chief Rodriguez appeared in the barracks for an unscheduled inspection. He moved methodically through the room, examining each candidate's area with the thoroughness of a detective looking for evidence. When he reached Maya's bunk, he spent considerably more time than he had with other candidates, examining every item of equipment and every detail of organization. "Rodriguez," he said finally, his voice carrying clearly through the quiet barracks, "explain to me why you think you deserve to be here." The question caught Maya off guard, not because she didn't have an answer, but because it was phrased as a challenge to her fundamental right to attempt the training. Around her, other candidates stopped their own preparations to listen to her response, understanding that this moment would reveal something important about the woman who had been performing at such a high level. "Chief, I believe I deserve to be here because I've earned the right through my performance," Maya replied, maintaining eye contact while remaining at attention. "I've met or exceeded every standard that's been set, and I'm committed to completing this training regardless of the challenges ahead." Chief Rodriguez studied her for a long moment, his expression unreadable. "Performance is one thing, Rodriguez. But this program isn't just about what you can do when you're fresh and motivated. It's about what you can do when you've been awake for 4 days, when you're colder than you've ever been in your life, when every muscle in your body is screaming for relief. It's about what happens when the easy part is over." Maya understood that this was more than just a question about her qualifications. It was a preview of the psychological warfare that would be employed during Hell Week, when the instructors would use every available tool to break down candidates who weren't completely committed to finishing the program. Her response would set the tone for how she would be treated during the most challenging period of her training. "Chief, I understand that the real test is ahead of us," she replied steadily. "I can't predict exactly how I'll perform when pushed to my absolute limits, but I can promise you that I won't quit. I'll either complete this program or you'll have to carry me out, but I won't ring that bell." The chief nodded slightly, his expression still neutral. "We'll see, Rodriguez. We'll see what you're really made of when the pressure is on." He moved on to the next candidate, but Maya could feel that something significant had just occurred. She had been put on notice that Hell Week would be a very personal test of her resolve. As the final days before Hell Week ticked away, Maya intensified her mental preparation. She visualized herself succeeding in various scenarios, practiced positive self-talk techniques, and reviewed the advice that Carlos had given her about maintaining focus under extreme stress. She also spent time studying the experiences of previous SEAL candidates, looking for insights into what made the difference between those who completed the program and those who quit. Jennifer, meanwhile, was showing signs of the pressure. Her performance during training had remained strong, but Maya could see the stress taking its toll in small ways. Difficulty sleeping, loss of appetite, and increasing nervousness during high-pressure situations. Maya tried to provide support and encouragement, but she also understood that ultimately each candidate would have to find their own way through Hell Week. The night before Hell Week began, Maya called her parents for what she knew might be the last time before the ordeal ended. Her father's voice was filled with pride and concern as he told her how much her success meant to the family and the community that had supported her journey. Her mother offered prayers and love, reminding Maya that she was fighting not just for herself, but for every little girl who had ever been told she wasn't strong enough to achieve her dreams. As Maya lay in her bunk that final night, listening to the sounds of the ocean and the quiet conversations of her fellow candidates, she felt a sense of calm resolve settle over her. She had prepared as thoroughly as possible, both physically and mentally. She had proven herself capable of performing at the highest levels during the regular training, and she had earned the respect of at least some of her peers and instructors. Hell Week would be the ultimate test, a period of sustained stress and exhaustion that would strip away all pretenses and reveal who possessed the core of steel required to be a Navy SEAL. Maya understood that the next 5.5 days would determine whether her dream of joining the most elite military unit in the world would become reality or remain forever unfulfilled. But, as she finally drifted off to sleep, Maya Rodriguez felt ready for whatever Hell Week would bring. She had come too far and sacrificed too much to quit now, and she was determined to show everyone who had doubted her capabilities that they had severely underestimated what she was capable of achieving. Tomorrow would begin the most challenging period of her life, but she was as prepared as any human being could be for the ordeal ahead. The bell that had called to so many candidates over the weeks of training sat silent in the darkness, waiting for Hell Week to begin. Some would answer its call before the week was over, but Maya had made her peace with the choice she would face when pushed to her absolute limits. She would not be among those who chose the easy path out, no matter how much suffering lay ahead. Her journey through Hell Week was about to begin, and she was ready to show the world what true determination looked like. Hell Week began at sunset on Sunday with the sound of machine gun fire echoing across the compound. Maya jerked awake from her brief rest, instantly alert as explosions and simulated gunfire filled the air around the barracks. The instructors had arrived in force, their faces painted with war paint as they screamed orders and created chaos designed to disorient and intimidate the candidates. Get up, get up, get up. The voices seemed to come from everywhere at once as instructors flooded into the barracks, banging on metal trash cans and setting off smoke grenades. Maya rolled out of her bunk and immediately began pulling on her gear, muscle memory taking over as her mind processed the sudden transition from sleep to crisis. Around her, candidates scrambled to get dressed and organized while the instructors maintained a constant barrage of noise and confusion. Some candidates fumbled with their equipment, the sudden wake-up call disrupting their fine motor skills and cognitive function. Maya forced herself to move deliberately and efficiently, knowing that panic would only make the situation worse. You have 2 minutes to be outside in formation with full gear. Chief Rodriguez's voice cut through the chaos like a knife. Anyone who's late starts Hell Week with a deficit they'll never recover from. Maya was among the first candidates ready, but she took precious seconds to help Jennifer locate her boots in the confusion. The gesture didn't go unnoticed by the instructors, who were carefully observing how candidates behaved under the initial stress of Hell Week. Leadership and teamwork under pressure were qualities they valued, even when candidates were supposed to be focused on individual survival. The formation outside was illuminated by flares and strobe lights, creating an otherworldly atmosphere that added to the disorientation. The remaining 31 candidates stood at attention while instructors circled them like predators, looking for any sign of weakness or uncertainty. Maya could feel her heart racing from the adrenaline, but she forced her breathing to remain controlled and steady. Chief Rodriguez stepped forward, his face painted in camouflage colors that made him look like a warrior from some ancient tribe. Welcome to Hell Week, ladies and gentlemen. For the next 5.5 a half days, you will discover what you're really made of. Some of you will find reserves of strength and determination you never knew existed. Others will find out that they're not as tough as they thought they were. He gestured toward the brass bell that had been moved closer to the formation, its surface gleaming ominously in the flickering light. That bell is going to call to you over the next few days. It's going to whisper promises of warm food, dry clothes, and uninterrupted sleep. Some of you are going to listen to that call, and that's fine with us. We only want the best of the best. The first exercise of Hell Week was surf torture, an extended session in the cold Pacific Ocean designed to shock the candidates' systems and begin the process of breaking down those who lacked the mental toughness to endure prolonged discomfort. The candidates were ordered to link arms and enter the water in a single line, where they would remain until the instructors decided they had suffered enough. The water temperature was in the low 50s, cold enough to be genuinely dangerous for extended exposure. Maya felt the shock of the cold water like an electric current running through her body as she waded deeper into the surf. The waves immediately began their assault, breaking over the line of candidates and driving salt water into their eyes and mouths. After 20 minutes in the water, Maya's body had moved beyond cold into a state approaching hypothermia. Her muscles were beginning to cramp, and her cognitive function was starting to slow as her core temperature dropped. Around her, she could hear other candidates beginning to lose control, their breathing becoming rapid and shallow as panic set in. The instructors patrolled the beach like guards, their voices carrying across the water as they offered candidates the option to quit. Just say the word, and you can be out of that water in 30 seconds, called Instructor Williams. Hot coffee, warm blankets, and a phone call home are waiting for anyone smart enough to know when they've had enough. Maya forced herself to focus on breathing and maintaining her position in the line. She had trained in cold water before, but nothing had prepared her for this level of sustained exposure combined with the stress of Hell Week. She could feel her resolve being tested in ways she hadn't anticipated, and she understood why so many candidates quit during this initial exercise. Jennifer, standing next to her in the line, was beginning to show serious signs of distress. Her lips were blue, and her whole body was shaking uncontrollably as hypothermia began to take hold. Maya squeezed her arm, offering what support she could while fighting her own battle against the cold, and the growing voice in her head that suggested quitting might be the sensible choice. After what felt like hours, but was actually 45 minutes, the candidates were finally ordered out of the water. Maya's legs could barely support her weight as she stumbled onto the beach, her muscles cramped, and her coordination severely impaired by the cold. The instructors immediately ordered them into a series of exercises designed to generate body heat, but also to continue the process of physical and mental breakdown. The push-ups were agony. Maya's arms shook with each repetition, and her waterlogged clothing made every movement feel like she was fighting against additional weight. Around her, she could hear candidates beginning to sob with exhaustion and frustration as they struggled to complete the exercises while their bodies fought against hypothermia. 2 candidates quit during the post-surf workout, walking over to the bell and ringing out of the program before the first hour of Hell Week was complete. Maya watched them go with a mixture of understanding and determination. She could see the relief on their faces as they made the decision to end their suffering, but she also knew that they would regret their choice for the rest of their lives. The night continued with a series of exercises designed to test different aspects of physical and mental toughness. Log PT in the sand pushed candidates to their limits while dealing with equipment that seemed designed to injure anyone who couldn't maintain perfect coordination with their teammates. Boat races in the surf tested water skills while adding the element of competition that brought out both the best and worst in exhausted candidates. Maya's boat crew had gelled into an effective unit over the weeks of training, and their performance during Hell Week reflected the trust and understanding they had developed. Thompson had emerged as the natural leader of the group, while Maya provided stability and technical expertise during water operations. Chen had found his niche as the crew's navigator and strategist, using his analytical mind to find advantages that pure physical strength couldn't provide. As the sun began to rise on Monday morning, marking the official beginning of Hell Week's first full day, Maya took stock of her condition. She was exhausted, cold, and sore from the night's activities, but she was still functioning at a high level. More importantly, her mental state remained strong. The instructors hadn't found her breaking point yet, and she was beginning to believe that they might not find it at all. The first full day of Hell Week brought new challenges designed to test candidates in ways they hadn't encountered during regular training. The instructors introduced sleep deprivation as a systematic tool, allowing candidates only brief periods of rest before waking them for the next evolution. The lack of sleep would compound over the days ahead, making every task more difficult and every decision more challenging. Breakfast was a cruel joke, served on metal trays while candidates stood in formation and tried to eat with hands that shook from exhaustion and cold. Maya forced herself to consume every calorie available, understanding that nutrition would be crucial for maintaining performance over the days ahead. Around her, some candidates were too exhausted or nauseous to eat properly, a mistake that would cost them dearly as Hell Week progressed. The morning brought the introduction of the whistle drill, an exercise that would be repeated hundreds of times over the next few days. When instructors blew their whistles, candidates had to immediately drop to the ground and begin performing push-ups, regardless of what they were doing or where they were located. The exercise was designed to test instant obedience and to create a state of constant stress where candidates never knew when the next demand would come. Maya quickly learned to listen for the whistles even when her attention was focused on other tasks. The ability to anticipate and respond instantly to instructor commands became second nature, but the constant state of alertness added another layer of mental fatigue to her growing list of challenges. The afternoon brought boat races that would test every aspect of seamanship and teamwork. Maya's crew was tasked with navigating a course that included surf passages, beach landings, and precision maneuvering around buoys placed in challenging positions. The exercise was made more difficult by the addition of time pressure and head-to-head competition with other crews. Maya took the lead during the water navigation phases, drawing on her Navy experience to guide her crew through the challenging course. Her boat handling skills had improved dramatically over the weeks of training, and she was able to make tactical decisions that gave her crew advantages over less experienced teams. During one particularly challenging surf passage, Maya's crew found themselves in competition with Thompson's former Ranger buddy, Staff Sergeant Martinez, whose crew was known for aggressive tactics and superior physical conditioning. The two boats approached the surf zone simultaneously, creating a dangerous situation where collision was possible if either crew made a mistake. Maya kept her crew calm and focused while Martinez's team seemed to be pushing beyond the limits of safety in their desire to win the race. She guided her boat through the surf using a route that was longer but safer, while Martinez's crew attempted a more direct approach that put them at the mercy of larger waves. The gamble didn't pay off for Martinez's crew. They were caught by a large wave that capsized their boat and scattered their team in the surf zone. Maya's crew completed the course successfully, while Martinez's team had to restart their attempt, ultimately finishing well behind several other crews. After the boat races, Chief Rodriguez gathered Maya's crew for individual feedback, a rare occurrence during Hell Week when most instruction was delivered to the class as a whole. He looked each crew member in the eye before addressing Maya directly. "Rodriguez, your water leadership during that exercise was outstanding. You made good tactical decisions under pressure and kept your crew safe while still maintaining competitive performance. That's the kind of decision-making we expect from SEAL operators in real-world situations." The recognition was gratifying, but Maya understood that it also meant she was being held to higher standards. The instructors were beginning to see her as a potential graduate of the program, which meant they would push her even harder to ensure she was truly ready for the responsibilities of a SEAL team member. As Monday evening approached, the physical and mental toll of Hell Week was becoming more apparent among the candidates. 2 more had quit during the day, unable to cope with the combination of exhaustion, cold, and constant stress. Maya could see the strain on the faces of those who remained, including Jennifer, who was beginning to show signs of serious fatigue. The evening meal was another exercise in endurance, with candidates required to eat while standing in formation and answering rapid-fire questions from instructors. The questions covered everything from basic military knowledge to complex problem-solving scenarios, and wrong answers resulted in immediate physical punishment for the entire class. Maya found that her mental acuity remained sharp despite her physical exhaustion. She was able to answer most questions correctly and even helped other candidates when they struggled with particularly difficult problems. Her performance during the academic portions of Hell Week was noted by the instructors, who were evaluating candidates on intellectual as well as physical capabilities. The second night of Hell Week brought new tortures designed to test candidates' resolve when they were already operating on minimal sleep and maximum stress. The instructors introduced sugar cookie sessions, where candidates were required to get completely covered in sand and then perform exercises while dealing with the irritation and discomfort of having sand in every piece of clothing and equipment. Maya learned to accept the sand as just another environmental factor to be dealt with rather than resisted. She watched other candidates become increasingly frustrated with the constant discomfort, while she focused on maintaining her performance despite the additional challenges. The mental discipline she had developed over years of preparation was paying dividends as Hell Week intensified. By Tuesday morning, the class had been reduced to 26 candidates, with attrition accelerating as the combined effects of sleep deprivation, physical exhaustion, and psychological pressure took their toll. Maya remained strong both physically and mentally, but she could see that Jennifer was struggling more with each passing hour. During a brief rest period, Jennifer approached Maya with tears in her eyes and exhaustion written across her face. "I don't know if I can do this," she admitted quietly. "Everything hurts, I can't think straight, and I feel like I'm going to collapse." Maya looked at her fellow female candidate with sympathy and understanding. She could see that Jennifer was at her breaking point, facing the choice that would define the rest of her life. As much as Maya wanted to see another woman succeed in the program, she understood that each candidate had to make their own decision about how much they were willing to endure. "You have to decide what this means to you," Maya told Jennifer gently. "No one else can make that choice for you. But remember that this feeling is temporary. Hell Week will end, but quitting is permanent." Jennifer nodded, wiping away her tears as she struggled with the most difficult decision of her life. Maya hoped that her fellow candidate would find the strength to continue, but she also understood that not everyone was built for this level of sustained punishment. The next few hours would reveal whether Jennifer had the reserves of determination needed to see Hell Week through to its completion. As Tuesday progressed into the middle phase of Hell Week, Maya prepared herself for what she knew would be the most challenging period of the entire ordeal. The instructors had saved their most creative torture for the middle days, when candidates were already severely weakened but still had days of suffering ahead of them. She had made it this far through a combination of preparation, determination, and sheer willpower, but she knew that her greatest tests were still to come. Wednesday morning of Hell Week dawned gray and cold, with a marine layer that seemed to press down on the remaining 23 candidates like a physical weight. Maya had managed perhaps 6 hours of sleep over the past 3 days, and her body was operating on reserves she hadn't known existed. Around her, the other candidates moved like zombies, their faces blank with exhaustion as they prepared for another day of systematic torture. Jennifer had made it through Tuesday night, but Maya could see that her resolve was hanging by the thinnest of threads. During the morning formation, Jennifer swayed on her feet, and Maya had to subtly steady her to prevent her from falling. The instructors noticed everything, and Maya knew that Jennifer's struggle was being carefully evaluated for signs that she might become a safety risk to herself or others. The morning evolution was Around the World, an exercise that would take the candidates to various training locations around the Coronado area while subjecting them to different challenges at each stop. The candidates were divided into boat crews and tasked with navigating to each location while carrying their boats and all required equipment. Maya's crew had been reduced from 6 to 5 members when one candidate quit during Tuesday's surf torture. The loss of a crew member meant that the remaining members would have to carry additional weight and work harder to maintain their performance standards. Maya stepped up to fill the leadership void, using her navigation skills to guide the crew efficiently between locations. The first stop was a mudflat where the candidates were required to low-crawl through thick, cold mud for several hundred yards while carrying their equipment. The mud seemed designed to suck candidates down and hold them in place, making every movement a struggle against the environment itself. Maya found herself completely covered in mud within minutes, but she maintained her pace and helped other crew members who were struggling with the conditions. As they crawled through the mud, the instructors walked alongside the candidates, offering constant commentary designed to break their mental resolve. "Look at you pathetic creatures," called out Instructor Williams. "You're not warriors, you're pigs wallowing in filth. Your families would be ashamed to see you like this." Maya had learned to filter out most of the instructor's psychological attacks, but she noticed that some candidates were beginning to internalize the criticism. She could see doubt creeping into their eyes, the first sign that they were beginning to question their ability to complete the program. She made a mental note to offer encouragement to those who seemed to be wavering. The second location was a pier where the candidates were required to perform a series of water exercises while wearing full gear. The water was even colder than the ocean, and the candidates had to complete tasks that required them to go completely underwater while maintaining control of their equipment. Maya's swimming skills served her well during this evolution, and she was able to help her crew maintain their timing and coordination. During the underwater exercises, Maya experienced her first moment of genuine panic during Hell Week. While performing a task that required her to swim underwater for an extended period, she became disoriented and briefly lost track of which direction was up. The sensation of being trapped underwater while exhausted and hypothermic was terrifying, but she forced herself to remain calm and work through the problem systematically. When she finally surfaced, gasping for air and fighting down panic, Maya realized that she had just passed through one of her most significant tests of the week. The instructors had been watching carefully to see how she would respond to a genuinely dangerous situation, and her ability to work through the panic without assistance or loss of control was noted with approval. The third location brought the candidates to a section of beach where they were required to perform surf-ups, an exercise where boat crews had to repeatedly carry their boats into the surf, get completely soaked, then return to the beach to perform exercises in their wet clothing. The evolution was designed to ensure that candidates never had a chance to get warm or dry, maintaining the constant discomfort that was central to Hell Week's effectiveness. Maya's crew had developed excellent teamwork over the course of their training, and their performance during the surf-ups was among the best in the class. They moved their boat efficiently through the water and maintained good coordination during the beach exercises. More importantly, they supported each other emotionally during the most challenging moments, with Maya often serving as the crew's source of positive energy. During one particularly difficult surf-up, when waves kept knocking the crew down and preventing them from completing their task, Maya gathered her teammates together for a moment of inspiration. "We've come too far to let some waves stop us," she told them, her voice carrying clearly over the sound of the surf. "We're better than this, and we're going to show these instructors what we're made of." Her words seemed to galvanize the crew, and they attacked the next attempt with renewed energy and focus. They completed the evolution successfully, earning rare praise from Chief Rodriguez, who had been watching their struggle with interest. "Now that's what I call teamwork under pressure," he announced. "The rest of you crews need to learn from what you just saw." The recognition felt good, but Maya knew that she couldn't let success go to her head. Hell Week was designed to tear down candidates who became overconfident, and the instructors were perfectly capable of creating new challenges that would test her in ways she hadn't yet experienced. Thursday morning brought the most dreaded evolution of Hell Week, the steel pier, an extended period of physical exercise performed on a concrete pier while soaking wet and fighting hypothermia. The candidates were required to perform hours of calisthenics, while instructors used fire hoses to keep them constantly drenched in cold water. Maya had heard horror stories about the steel pier from former SEAL candidates who had attempted the program. It was designed to be the ultimate test of mental toughness, where candidates would discover whether they possessed the internal strength to continue functioning when their bodies were screaming for relief. The evolution began before dawn, with candidates being awakened after only 2 hours of sleep and immediately ordered onto the pier. Maya's muscles were so stiff from exhaustion and cold that she could barely move during the first few minutes, but she forced herself to perform each exercise with maximum effort and perfect form. The fire hoses were relentless, soaking the candidates with icy water every time they began to generate any body heat through exercise. Maya learned to accept the water as just another environmental factor, but she could see other candidates beginning to break under the constant assault on their core temperature and morale. After 2 hours on the steel pier, 3 more candidates quit, unable to endure the combination of hypothermia, exhaustion, and psychological pressure. Maya watched them walk to the bell with a mixture of understanding and determination. She could see the relief in their eyes as they made the decision to end their suffering, but she also knew that they would carry the regret of quitting for the rest of their lives. Jennifer was among those who were struggling most severely during the steel pier evolution. Her lips were blue, her whole body was shaking uncontrollably, and Maya could see that she was fighting an internal battle between her desire to continue and her body's demands for relief. During a brief break between exercises, Jennifer approached Maya with tears mixing with the salt water on her face. "I can't feel my hands," Jennifer whispered, her voice barely audible over the sound of the waves and the instructor's commands. "I don't think I can do this anymore. I'm scared that I'm going to hurt myself or someone else if I keep going." Maya looked at her fellow female candidate with sympathy and understanding. She could see that Jennifer had reached her absolute limit, and that continuing might indeed be dangerous for her health. As much as Maya wanted to see another woman succeed in the program, she understood that each person had to make their own decision about how much they were willing to endure. "You have to do what's right for you," Maya told Jennifer gently. "You've already proven that you're incredibly tough just by making it this far. Nobody can take that away from you, regardless of what you decide to do next." Jennifer nodded, wiping away her tears as she made the most difficult decision of her life. 10 minutes later, Maya watched her walk to the bell and ring out of the program, becoming the last woman remaining in the class. The weight of that responsibility settled on Maya's shoulders like a physical burden, but it also strengthened her resolve to see Hell Week through to its completion. The Steel Pier evolution continued for another 3 hours, with candidates performing an endless series of exercises while fighting hypothermia and exhaustion. Maya found herself entering a mental state she had never experienced before, where her consciousness seemed to separate from her physical suffering. She continued to perform each exercise with precision and determination, but part of her mind seemed to float above the pain and discomfort. When the Steel Pier finally ended, Maya was surprised to discover that she was still functioning at a high level despite the ordeal. She had not only survived the most challenging evolution of Hell Week, but she had performed well enough to earn recognition from the instructors. Chief Rodriguez pulled her aside as the candidates prepared for their next evolution. "Rodriguez, I want you to know that your performance during Steel Pier was outstanding," he told her, his usually stern expression softened slightly. "You maintained your composure and your performance when candidates around you were breaking down. That's exactly the kind of mental toughness we're looking for in SEAL operators." The recognition was gratifying, but Maya understood that Hell Week was far from over. Thursday and Friday would bring new challenges designed to test the remaining candidates in ways they hadn't yet experienced. She was now one of only 19 candidates remaining from the original class of 48, and she knew that the instructors would continue to push everyone to their absolute limits. Thursday evening brought the final major evolution of Hell Week, a nighttime navigation exercise that would test the candidates' ability to function effectively when operating on minimal sleep and maximum stress. The exercise required boat crews to navigate a complex course in total darkness while carrying out various mission objectives along the way. Maya's crew was assigned a mission that required them to infiltrate a beach location, retrieve simulated intelligence materials, and extract without being detected by instructor role players acting as enemy forces. The exercise combined all the skills they had learned during their months of training while adding the stress factors that made everything more difficult. Maya took the lead during the mission planning phase, drawing on her Navy experience to develop tactics that would maximize their chances of success. She assigned roles based on each crew member's strengths and developed contingency plans for various scenarios they might encounter during the exercise. The mission itself was a success, with Maya's crew completing all objectives while avoiding detection by the instructor opposition forces. Their performance was among the best in the class, earning recognition from the instructors and respect from their fellow candidates. More importantly, the mission gave Maya confidence that she could function effectively as a leader under the extreme stress conditions that characterized real SEAL operations. Friday morning brought the final day of Hell Week, but Maya knew that the instructors would save some of their most challenging evolutions for the end. Candidates who had survived this far were close to graduation from Hell Week, but they still had to prove that they could maintain their performance standards even when victory was almost within reach. The morning evolution was a final boat race that would test every aspect of seamanship and teamwork that the candidates had learned. Maya's crew approached the race with the confidence that came from their successful performance throughout Hell Week, but they also understood that a single mistake could still result in failure during the final hours of the ordeal. The race itself was intense, with boat crews pushing themselves to their absolute limits in pursuit of victory. Maya's crew maintained their position near the front of the pack throughout the race, but they faced strong challenges from other crews who were equally determined to finish Hell Week on a high note. In the final stretch of the race, Maya made a tactical decision that demonstrated the leadership skills she had developed throughout her training. When she saw that another crew was in danger of capsizing in heavy surf, she directed her crew to assist with their rescue rather than pressing their own advantage in the race. The decision cost them a potential victory, but it demonstrated the values that the SEAL teams considered more important than individual achievement. Chief Rodriguez was waiting on the beach when Maya's crew completed the race, and his expression showed approval of the decision they had made. "Rodriguez, you just demonstrated one of the most important qualities of a SEAL operator," he told her. "Mission success is important, but the safety and welfare of your teammates always comes first. That's a lesson that some people never learn, even after years in the teams." Friday afternoon brought the final evolution of Hell Week, a ceremony where the surviving candidates would be recognized for their achievement and officially welcomed into the next phase of SEAL training. Maya stood with the 18 other survivors, her body exhausted but her spirit soaring with the knowledge that she had accomplished something that most people considered impossible. As Chief Rodriguez addressed the surviving candidates, Maya reflected on the journey that had brought her to this moment. She had faced doubters and skeptics who believed that women didn't belong in elite military units, but she had proven them wrong through sustained excellence and determination. She had survived every challenge that Hell Week had thrown at her, and she had done it while maintaining the highest standards of performance and leadership. "Ladies and gentlemen," Chief Rodriguez announced, "you have just completed one of the most challenging training evolutions in the United States military. You have proven that you possess the physical toughness, mental resilience, and moral character required to become Navy SEALs. But remember, this is just the beginning. The real test is what you do with the skills and confidence you've gained here." Maya looked around at her fellow survivors, noting the faces of candidates who had supported each other through the most difficult week of their lives. Thompson gave her a nod of respect that acknowledged how much his opinion of her capabilities had changed over the course of their training. Chin smiled at her with the quiet satisfaction of someone who had exceeded his own expectations. Even some of the instructors were looking at her with expressions that showed grudging admiration for her performance. As the ceremony concluded and the candidates were dismissed to begin their recovery from Hell Week, Maya allowed herself a moment of quiet celebration. She had not only survived Hell Week, but she had excelled during the most challenging military training evolution in the world. She had proven that women could compete successfully in the most demanding environments, and she had done it without compromising her values or her commitment to excellence. The journey to becoming a Navy SEAL was far from complete, but Maya had passed the ultimate test of mental and physical toughness. She had shown everyone who had underestimated her capabilities that they had been wrong, and she had opened doors for future generations of women who might choose to follow in her footsteps. As Maya walked off the beach where she had endured so much suffering and achieved so much success, she thought about the little girl from Texas who had dreamed of doing something extraordinary with her life. That dream was now within reach, and nothing would stop her from seeing it through to completion. She had proven that she belonged among the elite, and now she was ready to earn her place in the most exclusive military unit in the world. The brass bell that had called to so many candidates over the course of Hell Week sat silent as Maya passed by it one final time. She had refused to answer its call during her moments of greatest weakness, and now she never would. Maya Rodriguez was going to become a Navy SEAL, and no one who witnessed her journey through Hell Week would ever underestimate a determined woman again.